If you're feeling like something's missing in your life, that sensation, no matter how uncomfortable, isn't a mistake. It's not a flaw or a sign that you're failing. It's not even something to fix right away. It's a signal, a subtle, often misunderstood message from within that something in your life is out of alignment with who you really are. That feeling of emptiness that creeps in at night, or that quiet discontent that lingers even when things seem fine, isn't just random. It doesn't show up to torment you. It shows up to guide you. Most people rush to silence that feeling. They distract themselves with noise, work, entertainment, achievements, even relationships. But when something is missing and you truly listen, you'll find that your inner world is speaking with incredible clarity. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, but it keeps showing up again and again until you turn toward it. You see, we are all born with an inner sense of direction, a deep awareness of what gives us meaning and energy. Over time, as we grow up, that compass often gets buried beneath layers of expectations, family beliefs, social norms, career pressures. We start to chase what we've been told will make us happy: success, recognition, safety, approval. And for a while it works, or at least it seems to. But at some point, often in the quiet moments, that voice inside us whispers, "This isn't it. Something is missing." And when that whisper comes, we have a choice. We can numb it, or we can honor it. The people who find true meaning in life are not the ones who never felt that void. They are the ones who dared to ask what it was pointing to. That's what this moment is offering you. Not a breakdown, but a breakthrough. A chance to realign. The sense that something is missing is not your enemy. It's your most honest ally. It's the part of you that refuses to settle for a life that looks good but feels hollow. It's the quiet rebellion of your soul against living on autopilot. And, if you're brave enough to listen to it, it will lead you somewhere more honest, more alive. We live in a culture that worships comfort and distraction. When discomfort arises, we rush to fix it, label it, escape it. But not every void needs to be filled with something external. Sometimes the missing piece isn't out there, it's a part of you that you've silenced. Your creativity, your curiosity, your connection to something deeper than logic or routine. To truly live, we must sometimes let go of the life we've constructed to find the life that's calling us. This isn't about throwing everything away, it's about going inward. It's about being honest enough to admit that you're hungry for more, not more stuff, but more meaning. And that hunger, that's a gift. It's the beginning of truth. If you feel lost, let yourself be lost. Don't rush to find the answer, because you are not a problem to solve. You are a mystery to live. And mysteries unfold in their own time. The feeling that something is missing isn't asking you to panic. It's asking you to pause. It's asking you to remember. Remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Remember the spark you had before it was dimmed by practicality. Remember that your life isn't just about surviving, it's about coming alive. The pain you feel isn't here to punish you. It's here to wake you up, to call you home. And once you stop seeing that missing feeling as something to avoid, and instead as something to understand, you start to reconnect with your own depth. You begin to trust that your inner world holds wisdom, not just wounds. So the next time you feel that emptiness rise, don't reach for distraction. Sit with it. Breathe into it. Ask it, "What are you trying to tell me?" And listen. Really listen. You might be surprised at what comes up. A buried dream, a forgotten passion, a part of yourself that you left behind. This is not the end of something. It's the beginning of something much more real. This is the message you need. If something feels missing in your life, Maybe it's finally time to stop searching outside and start remembering who you really are. You might not realize it right away, but much of the emptiness we feel in life comes from the quiet, invisible weight of living by someone else's definition of fulfillment. From the earliest moments, we are handed templates, scripts really, about what life is supposed to look like. We're told what success means, what relationships should be, what careers are respectable, what kind of person is valuable, and we adopt these beliefs without even realizing they were handed to us, not chosen by us. We are shaped long before we're aware of it. Parents, teachers, culture, religion, they all leave marks. Not intentionally to misguide us, but because they too inherited these definitions from those before them. It becomes a cycle. And so, without question, we move through life chasing dreams that may not even be ours. We climb ladders leaned against walls we never chose. We measure our worth against standards that don't reflect who we truly are, and then, one day, we pause, maybe for a moment, and ask, why doesn't this feel like enough? That question can shake the foundation, because if you've done everything right and still feel something's missing, where do you turn? That's when many begin to realize they've been living someone else's version of the good life. They've followed the rules but ignored the voice within. And now that voice is growing louder. It's not always easy to hear it, especially when the life you've built looks successful from the outside. You may have a stable job, a family, a routine, but still feel strangely disconnected from it all. You go through the motions, fulfill your roles, check all the boxes, and yet, something remains untouched, something essential. And no matter how hard you try to fill that space with more accomplishments, more recognition, more control, it doesn't go away. Because the life you're living isn't aligned with your truth, it's aligned with expectation. This moment, this discomfort, is the turning point. It's the place where many either retreat into more distraction or begin the far more courageous work of asking, what is my definition of fulfillment? That's not a surface-level question. It doesn't live in quick answers or self-help slogans. It's buried beneath the layers of who you were told to be. To uncover it, you have to get honest with yourself. Strip away the titles, the roles, the masks. Ask what truly lights you up, what makes you feel most like yourself when no one's watching, what you would choose if you weren't afraid of disappointing anyone. And yes, that can be uncomfortable, because when you begin to hear those answers, they might challenge the life you've built. They might ask you to take a different path, to reimagine your purpose, to rediscover forgotten passions. But it's not about throwing everything away. It's about realignment, bringing your life closer to your own center. The challenge, of course, is that the world doesn't usually reward inner alignment. It rewards appearances. It praises performance. But here's the truth. No amount of external approval will satisfy a soul that feels unseen. No amount of praise will fill the space where your authenticity belongs. And the longer you ignore that, the louder the feeling of disconnection becomes. So, if you've ever looked around at your life and thought, I should be happy, but I'm not, that doesn't mean you're ungrateful. It doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're waking up. Waking up to the fact that real fulfillment is not a destination someone else maps out for you. It's a relationship you build with yourself, one that requires honesty, self-inquiry, and the courage to rewrite the script. This awakening is not a crisis, it's a calling to return to yourself, to your own values, to what genuinely resonates with your heart, not just what earns praise. And that path is yours alone. No one else can walk it. No one else can define it. But it's there, waiting for you, the moment you decide to stop performing and start living. If something feels missing in your life, maybe it's time to stop following someone else's version of fulfillment and start living your own. When something feels missing in your life, the first instinct is often to look outward. You start scanning your environment, your job, your relationships, your finances, your routines, wondering what needs to be changed or fixed. Maybe you convince yourself that if you just had a better partner, a more meaningful job, more money, more freedom, then the emptiness would disappear. And while these external changes might bring temporary relief, they rarely touch the deeper, more persistent ache that lies beneath. Because the truth is, the feeling that something is missing usually doesn't come from your circumstances. It comes from within. It's not a sign that your life is broken. It's a sign that you've become disconnected. Disconnected from your purpose, from your inner voice, from your authentic self. And that disconnection isn't always obvious. It doesn't shout. It doesn't make a scene. It slips in quietly, under the radar, and slowly creates a gap between the life you're living and the life that feels real to you. This disconnection doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means life has become too noisy, too fast, too full of things that don't feed your soul. And in that chaos, you begin to drift. You go through your days responding to what's urgent, not what's important. You meet expectations but forget to check in with yourself. You fulfill your responsibilities but rarely your own longings. And eventually, that gap becomes impossible to ignore. We often try to fix the discomfort by rearranging our external world, getting a new job, moving to a new place, ending or starting a relationship. And while change can be healthy and even necessary, it can also become a form of avoidance. Because no matter where you go, you bring yourself with you. And if you're disconnected from yourself, that sense of absence will follow you, even into the most promising circumstances. You can have all the markers of success, status, security, admiration, and still feel empty. You can be surrounded by people and still feel alone. You can be busy all day and still feel aimless. That's because fulfillment is not rooted in what you have. It's rooted in how connected you are to who you are. And who you are isn't defined by your job title or your relationship status. It's not the sum of your achievements or the roles you play. Who you are lives in a deeper space. It's the part of you that feels lit up when you're doing something meaningful, when you're being honest, when you're fully present. And when you lose touch with that part, everything starts to feel flat, like you're going through the motions without actually living them. Reconnecting with yourself doesn't require a dramatic change. It requires presence. It requires asking difficult questions. It requires creating space to feel what you've been pushing away. It's not comfortable work, but it's necessary. Because you can't heal what you refuse to face. You can't reconnect if you won't slow down long enough to listen. Sometimes the most important work we do isn't about adding anything new to our lives. It's about removing what doesn't belong. The noise, the distractions, the stories we tell ourselves about who we're supposed to be. Beneath all of that, there is something still and true, a quiet knowing, a sense of self that isn't shaken by circumstance. That part of you is always there. It's just been buried under the weight of everything else. When you begin to reconnect, the world doesn't necessarily change, but your relationship to it does. You stop living reactively. You stop outsourcing your peace to things beyond your control. You begin to feel grounded again, even in the midst of uncertainty, because you're no longer searching for wholeness outside of yourself. You're remembering that it was within you all along. So if you're feeling like something is missing, don't be so quick to assume it's your life that needs to be overhauled. It might just be that you've become disconnected from what truly matters to you, from what feels alive, from the quiet truth you've ignored for too long. This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about becoming aware. Because only when you're aware can you begin the process of realignment. The most meaningful transformations don't come from fixing your environment. They come from reconnecting with yourself. And that journey begins not with action, but with attention, with choosing to pause, to feel, and to listen. If something feels missing in your life, maybe it's not your world that's broken. Maybe it's time to come back to yourself. In today's world, we're surrounded by more information, more noise, and more stimulation than ever before. Every moment, something is asking for our attention. Emails, messages, headlines, voices, expectations. It's relentless. And in that constant flood of input, it becomes almost impossible to hear the one voice that actually matters. Your own. The one that whispers beneath the noise, offering quiet guidance, subtle warnings, and the deep truth of what you actually need. When something feels missing in your life, most people try to add more to fill the gap. They pile on new goals, new habits, new routines. They consume more advice, more books, more podcasts, hoping that the right answer is just one more insight away. But often, the answer isn't in adding anything new. It's in removing what's unnecessary, because until you silence the noise, you cannot hear what your soul is trying to tell you. That emptiness you feel, it's not a call to panic. It's a call to presence, to stillness, to listening. But here's the challenge. Listening to yourself requires a kind of silence we're not used to. Not just the absence of sound, but a deeper kind of quiet. The willingness to stop running, to sit with yourself, to allow uncomfortable truths to surface without immediately trying to push them away. This kind of listening takes courage, because when we get still, we begin to hear things we've been avoiding. We hear the grief we haven't processed, the longing we've buried, the intuition we ignored. And it's tempting to distract ourselves again, to turn the volume back up, to scroll, to stay busy, to keep moving. But if something feels missing, it's not going to be found in more noise. It's going to be revealed in the space you create. The world rewards movement, not stillness. It tells you to hustle, to produce, to stay relevant, to keep pushing forward. And yet, the most honest parts of you live in the quiet. They're not loud or urgent. They don't compete for your attention. They wait for you to slow down enough to notice them. You see, your inner guidance is subtle by nature. It doesn't demand, it invites. And to receive that invitation, you must be willing to get quiet. This doesn't mean you have to retreat from life. It means you need moments, real, uninterrupted moments, where you're not reacting, not performing, not solving, just being, just listening. That's where clarity begins. That's where the missing pieces start to reveal themselves. So many people ask, what am I supposed to do with my life? Or why don't I feel fulfilled? But they ask those questions while scrolling, while multitasking, while rushing from one obligation to the next. It's like trying to hear a whisper in the middle of a thunderstorm. The answers don't come in that state. They come when you're willing to sit in the quiet long enough to hear the faintest truth rise up from within. Stillness is not inaction. It's a different kind of action. One that reconnects you to your center. It's where your next steps are born. Not out of pressure, not out of fear, but out of inner alignment. And when you move from that place, your actions become more honest, more sustainable, more alive. But silence takes practice. In the beginning, it can feel uncomfortable, even agitating. We're not used to being with ourselves without distraction. We're not used to feeling without analyzing or fixing. But eventually the noise starts to fall away and something softer takes its place. A kind of inner steadiness, a quiet confidence, a sense that even if you don't have all the answers yet, you're finally in the right conversation. What's missing in your life might not be something outside of you, it might be your own presence, your own voice, buried under layers of stimulation and expectation. And that voice doesn't want to scream, it wants to be heard. All it asks is that you make space. Not once, not occasionally, but regularly. that you build moments of quiet into your life, not as a luxury, but as a necessity. You don't need more advice. You don't need more strategies. You need space. You need the courage to turn down the volume of the world long enough to hear what your heart has been trying to say all along. If something feels missing in your life, maybe it's time to silence the noise and finally listen. There's a strange discomfort that comes with growth, a quiet tension between the person you've been and the person you're becoming. When something feels missing in your life, it's often not because you've failed or because something's gone wrong. It's because you've outgrown a part of yourself, a version of you that once fit, that once made sense, now feels too small. And you may not be able to explain why, you just feel it. An inner friction, a restlessness, a pull towards something you can't yet name. This is the nature of transformation. It doesn't always arrive with fanfare. More often it begins with subtle dissatisfaction. The things that once excited you don't anymore. The routines that once felt secure now feel confining. The roles you've played begin to feel like costumes. And the more you try to pretend everything is fine, the more you feel that quiet ache inside, telling you something is shifting, something is calling you forward. Most people resist this feeling, not because they don't want to grow, but because growth requires loss. You have to let go of the identity that brought you this far. You have to release habits, patterns, and sometimes even people that no longer align with who you're becoming. And that's not easy. There's grief in growth. Grief for who you were, for what you're leaving behind, for the comfort of the familiar. But there's also something else. Freedom. Freedom comes when you stop clinging to the past version of yourself just because it's what others expect. When you stop editing yourself to fit a narrative that no longer feels true. When you stop shrinking to stay inside the lines you've outgrown. It's in that space, the space between who you were and who you're becoming, that something extraordinary can begin to unfold. You begin to feel more alive, not because everything is perfect, but because you're finally in motion. Not in circles, but forward. But this process isn't linear. Some days you'll feel clear and courageous. Other days you'll question everything. That's okay. That's part of the shedding. Real transformation is messy. It's not polished or predictable. It doesn't happen on your timeline. But it's always honest. It doesn't ask you to become someone else. It asks you to become more of who you truly are. And sometimes that means releasing what no longer fits, even when it's hard to say goodbye. We tend to think of evolution as adding more skills, more accomplishments, more clarity. But often it's the opposite. It's about subtraction. Removing the masks, the false stories, the outdated beliefs that once protected you but now confine you. It's about standing in the uncertainty of the unknown without rushing to fill it, and trusting that the discomfort you feel isn't the end of something, but the beginning of something more real. The challenge is that this inner shift rarely comes with external validation. The world celebrates consistency, predictability, staying in your lane. But your soul is not here to be consistent. It's here to grow, and growth is disruptive. It will make people uncomfortable. It may even make you uncomfortable. But staying where you don't belong, pretending to be someone you're not, is far more painful in the long run. So if you feel like you're in between, no longer who you were, but not yet who you're becoming, know that this is sacred ground. It's where the old identity loosens its grip and the new self begins to form. Not in one grand moment, but gradually, through choices that honor your truth, through moments of integrity where you choose alignment over approval, through the quiet courage to say, "This no longer feels like me," even when you don't yet know what will. You're not lost, you're unfolding. You're peeling back the layers that were never really yours, and underneath them, something steady and timeless is waiting to emerge. A deeper self, a truer voice, a more honest life. You don't have to force it. You don't have to rush it. You just have to allow it. Let the discomfort do its work. Let the restlessness lead you inward. Let the old fall away with grace. Because the feeling that something is missing isn't always a void. Sometimes it's space being cleared. Space for your next chapter. Space for your authentic self to rise. Space for you to remember that you are not meant to stay the same. You are meant to evolve, again and again, into the most alive version of yourself. If something feels missing in your life, maybe you're not falling apart. Maybe you're outgrowing who you were. It's one of the hardest truths to accept, that no one is coming to save you. Not in the way you might hope. Not with the perfect plan, the right words, or the missing piece that will make everything fall into place. And yet, this truth is not meant to discourage you. It's meant to liberate you. Because the moment you stop waiting for someone else to give you permission to live fully, the moment you stop believing that fulfillment lies in someone else's hands, you step into your own power. You stop being a passive observer in your life and become the author of it. For much of our lives, we're taught to look outward for guidance. We're told that someone else knows better. Parents, teachers, institutions, experts, and for a time that may serve us. But eventually we reach a point where the answers we're searching for cannot be found outside. They have to come from within. And this is where many get stuck. Not because they lack the ability, but because they don't trust their own voice. They doubt their intuition, they second-guess their choices, they wait for a sign, for clarity, for someone to say, "Now it's your turn." But your life doesn't begin when someone else gives you the green light. It begins when you stop asking for one. When you take responsibility not just for your actions, but for your joy, your purpose, your peace. This doesn't mean you do it all alone, without support or community. It means you stop waiting for someone to do the inner work for you. It means you realize that the healing, the change, the fulfillment you seek, it's an inside job. And that's not always what we want to hear. It's far easier to blame the world, to point to circumstances, to say, if only this were different. But that kind of thinking keeps you powerless. It keeps you trapped in a cycle of waiting, hoping that the right job, the right partner, the right moment will finally complete you. But what if you stopped waiting? What if you decided that you are the one you've been waiting for? This shift changes everything. You stop asking, when will it get better? And start asking, what can I choose today that brings me closer to who I want to be? You stop expecting someone else to rescue you from your pain and start becoming the one who tends to it with compassion. You stop thinking life owes you something and start creating the meaning you've been searching for. It's not easy. In fact, it's one of the most difficult and courageous things you can do, to take full ownership of your life, to stop blaming your past, to stop outsourcing your happiness, to face the part of yourself you'd rather avoid. But this is where transformation begins, not in changing the world around you, but in changing how you relate to it, in becoming someone who no longer waits to be saved, but who chooses to show up fully and honestly, no matter how uncertain the path ahead may be. And yes, it's natural to feel fear, to wonder if you're ready, to wish someone would just take your hand and show you the way. But the truth is, no one knows your path better than you do. No one else has your exact story, your exact wounds, your exact wisdom. So while guidance can help, while mentors and relationships and resources matter, in the end, you are the one who must walk your own road. You are the one who must choose to rise again and again, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Because that moment, the one where you realize it's up to you, is the beginning of true freedom. It's the moment you stop living from reaction and start living from intention. It's the moment you stop waiting for the perfect life and begin living the honest one. The one where you don't need to be rescued because you're no longer abandoning yourself. You begin to trust your own wisdom. You begin to honor your own timing. You begin to listen not to the noise of the world, but to the quiet certainty within you that says, you were always capable. And when that voice grows louder than your fear, louder than your doubt, louder than your conditioning, that is when you come home to yourself. So if something feels missing in your life, don't wait for someone else to bring it to you. Be the one who brings it to yourself. If this message spoke to something deep within you, if it helped you see your life a little more clearly, or reminded you of your own strength, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who might need to hear these words today. Subscribe for more content that goes beyond the surface, and stay connected as we keep exploring what it really means to live a life that feels whole, true, and fully your own. Thank you.